politics. I have a set of leading politicians in the country who will be helping us understand whether this is actually what it ought to be, or we have a chance to do better in the governance spectre. All right, just a preamble before I introduce them. Following years of civil strife, Uganda emerged as a movement-only state under the National Resistance Movement led by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. One of the major innovations of this new government was to implement a strategy of administrative and fiscal decentralization. The experiment was long hailed as Africa's success story, but the re-emergence of multi-party politics in 2006 had a major impact on the governance framework. Since the installation of democratic governance in 1996, following the new constitution, a lot of attention has been placed on the nature and the forms of political institutions that construct a strong democratic government. I'm joined on set this morning by the Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality, Ibrahim Ssemujju Nganda. I'm also joined by Brandon Kintu, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Kagoma North County, who's also the spokesperson of the National Resistance Movement Caucus in Parliament. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honourable Ssemujju Nganda, it is my very first time to host you on Morning at 10 TV. I do not know why you have deliberately avoided me, but
you invited me and I have come.
Interesting there. Talking about the dynamics of multi-party politics in the country, you have been a consistent actor ever since you entered Parliament and ditched journalism for active political business. Is what we are practicing fit for purpose? One would say, but we've had you speak severally on issues that you think are not going the right way. Why would I ask that question again? But here we are on national TV. Perhaps having conversation again would not be a disservice to our people.
If you allow, especially for the young people, let me give a background. Mr. Museveni and NRM capture power 1986, and in legal notice number 1, they ban political parties. The 1995 constitution is made, an article which eventually was declared unconstitutional by the Constitutional Court, Article 269, limits operations of political parties at their headquarters. A law on political party, the Political Parties and Organizations Act, is made by, I think, the 7th Parliament, and there was an attempt to free political parties from their headquarters, but that provision in the law was eventually removed by the NRM. As you said rightly, then we have a referendum 2005, and political parties are now allowed to operate. I covered the Movement National Executive Committee meeting. I was working at Monitor in Chankwanza, and the president gave 3 reasons why parties should be allowed. He said we have young people, and in his own word he said they have MP of Edembe, that they have not been part of our history, the turbulence, so they keep demanding for parties. Let us allow them to operate. He also said there are multi-parties who keep bad-mouthing Uganda in the international community, but also the donors are putting us under too much pressure. Those are the 3 reasons that the president gave. And that tells you why parties are functioning the way they are functioning. Because by releasing political parties, the president did not say that we now as a country want multi-party democracy, to allow freedom of association, to allow freedom of assembly, to allow political competition. Because you see, competition is supposed to bring, we're supposed to benefit from the competition if you have politicians competing. So the reason for releasing parties was not to allow political competition in the country, and that's why the whole campaign of Mr. Museveni during the referendum was to be Jeko. He also wanted to get rid of those who were opposed to his life presidency. So that's where we are as a country, that parties were released. They were never released to allow political competition. to allow freedom of association and freedom of assembly, but because there are issues that Mr. Museveni, the military man, had to deal with. So politics in Uganda largely remains arbitrated by the military and military men. That's why in every campaign they will shoot at people, they will grab ballot boxes, they will determine who the win eventually becomes. So that's why parties are struggling. So therefore the question that you have asked, it's very, very difficult to judge political parties in Uganda. Very, very difficult, because the conditions under which all of us are operating are very difficult conditions. You go to Adwese Rally the other day, the National Unity Platform went to open offices. But because that opening was witnessed by crowds and crowds, say, oh no, wait a minute, you stop. If you want to open an office, you go back to Article 269 that was in the Constitution. Maybe you go at night quietly and then open and go home and sleep. Because in the mind of Mr. Museveni, that's why I said from Legal Notice number 1 to Article 269 of the Constitution that eventually was declared unconstitutional, he must face no competition. Political parties can operate because the international community is going to put you under pressure. They will not give you money for this and that. So you can allow parties to exist, but exist in a name. But the things that parties are supposed to do, you don't allow them. You only allow them limited space during presidential and general elections. That's when you allow them. After that, you must restrict them. Go back to what is in his mental frame, that I cannot face competition. And you can understand, Museveni having failed the elections in 1980, you know, he stood against Sam Kutesa in Mbarara North and miserably lost. So his party got only one MP, Crispus Chionga, in Kasese, and it was because the DP candidate had died. But so Museveni hates competition. He must shield himself from competition. So political parties can exist. He will infiltrate them. He will compromise the leaders of those political parties. He will beat you. He will raid and ransack your offices. So that's how we operate in Uganda. So the value that we are supposed to extract from political competition, we have, as I conclude, we have missed it. Because political parties by their nature are supposed to be mentoring and identifying people and providing leadership to the country. Today, because we are under military, that's why you can see everyone in NRM can become a leader. Okay. No mentoring, no recruitment. People just emerge from nowhere and then they say, you are a prime minister, you are a minister for this. No experience, no knowledge. As if to run a country is just playing around.
All right, thank you for that submission, Honorable Nganda. Honorable Brandon Chintu, would I be off the mark if I say that you largely agree with the submission by Honorable Ssemujju Nganda on the fact that the political space is pretty much a farce, given the events that we have seen? He claims that President Yoweri Museveni understands the workings of the international community. They need to be seen to allow for some people to act as opposition politicians, but when in essence, he's the man who is running the show.
First of all, we have a Political Organization Act in this country. And then most importantly is that in political science, it explains what are the political parties. This is a section of different individuals or groups that can really emerge across the country with different ideas, but they should have capacity to control or take care of government. Now the biggest question would be, do our political parties have that capacity? Without going to point finger on who is there. These are like managing homes. We have political parties, the way I explained rightly how it came, and this history in this country is well known. But how do we also conduct ourselves, not only in opposition, even back home in the NRM? You'll find a candidate, especially in our constituencies, you run for the flag, or you want to be NUP. I saw it in my constituents. I had about 3 NUP-leaning candidates, and the other as a NUP candidate. I had 2 NRM-leaning candidates, and then we also had FDC-leaning and official. So this also comes back to us, because I am Msoga, after that I am Ugandan, then these other political parties are shut. I can choose, because that's the freedom that we talk about, also expression and exercising multi-party democracy. But again, most importantly is that we are all in the learning process. If you look at how our political parties operate now, they'll keep on shifting blame game. Museveni, the NRM, I don't think how my neighbor will interfere with the management of my home. But I think we just need to check ourselves. I agree with the Honorable Semju. We have a leadership institute in Chankwas, which is purely government institute. But if you would provoke the opposition leaders or the membership of the opposition, how often do you also use this institute? Because it's public. As Parliament, we also allocate money for it to appoint. But the bias has been shifted to the NRM. It's like it's supposed to be for the NRM, and yet it's a National Leadership Institute, which is like any other institutes in Munduli and elsewhere here in East Africa. So if we would have basic training, if we would also understand, because political parties are not made by logs, these are humans. But where is our background? Do you only join a political party? I'll refer to myself so much. Do I only join the NRM because I know NRM enjoys massive competition in Kagoma? Because there are also that are very comfortable. In the recent, even right now, when you see people are mobilizing, they tell you, I just want strategically to get a NUP card so that I get into police, I get into parliament, or so that I get into this position. But does this person understand actually the philosophy of NUP and what it stands for? These individuals will do contrary, and of course will take up the name of the party. And in the NRM, the FDC, let's look at what is happening now. If you would pop a question to the Honorable Semju, FDC, yes, which one? These contradictions,
those questions a little
these
bit
contradictions are actually making political party system ugly. I think it's time that we need from our leadership, first of all, to understand the ideology of your party, and maybe probably also to understand how does multi-party democracy work.
Before I quickly go to our guest, of course, the Deputy Spokesperson of the National Unity Platform, Alex Waisomo from Biro. Many thanks for joining us. Let me ask this question. Why is the National Resistance Movement nervous of opening space so that other political parties can act without hindrance or encumbrance at any one point? You have the massive support as the governing party. You have the ability to mobilize, which other parties do not have. When one party seeks to mobilize, or for example, open an office like the National Unity Platform did, all of a sudden there is nervousness. What is this nervousness about?
I don't know what you exactly need to understand about being nervous and mobilization. Every political party, if you interest yourself, they have structures. And no one from the NRM Secretariat came and stopped them. If you go to the villages, you'll find an FDC chairperson, LC1, you'll find an NRM, you'll find NUP, and those other political parties that are central in Kampala. So, because this is by act of law, this is constitutional that these political parties should have branches. Some parties have just been held in elections. So, it's just the capacity. Like, we are institutionalized as the NRM. We have all the branches, we have the organs, even at the most top organs. So the level at which we caucus and organize, probably these other parties would be doing a benchmark to find out, instead of blaming that so the other one is a mole, this one is planted within the party. So NRM is not nervous at all, but like any other party, we are trying to strengthen, because we are into elections very soon in 2 years. And we want to continue mobilizing because we believe we have the agenda that can take this country forward. And equally, you cannot start saying you are stopping the FDC or the Democratic Party. But these people work moderately and they have their constitution. And I think that's the other thing that they need before you try to emphasize on the party and you have members. Save for this upper side, you can look at it at the Kampala level. But the members of other political parties, they are diligently serving their parties. And you don't even tell them the confusion that is in the party. So because of some issues, they could be indiscipline, they could be mistrust in the party, and then these organizations are not organized to focus and work, and they will simply blemish the NRM. But the NRM has nothing to do with it because we don't manage these parties.
That's an interesting submission, but allow me to welcome Waisomo from Biro on board. Congratulations on the National Unity Platform opening party offices. Party structures or headquarters are integral in the administration of issues within any one political entity. And the fact that the National Unity Platform seeks to make that a very deliberate move is commendable within the workings of a multi-party system. your own experience as a party within this dispensation has been, well, fested with a lot of challenges here and there. What's your take on multi-party politics in the
maybe
country?
again, just 1 minute, I would like to convey our appreciation since the deputy spokesperson is here. You know, this is a month of preparation for us, Busoga Kingdom. They really visited the Prime Minister and gave us a very big contribution as National Unity Platform. So I'd like to convey our special appreciation to NUP.
The sting has just been taken out of your submission.
Well, we are obligated to be happy with Ugandans when they are going to be happy. Honestly speaking, for the first time, Busoga managed to liberate itself through a very, very, very militaristic process. You know that November 18th, to us who speak about democracy with passion, is another historical day now in the history of Uganda, where over 54 people were murdered. His Excellency Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, where in Busoga gave him a name of Ngobi, was abducted from Luuka by these resistors. And being that after 2 years we are lucky that the king will be walking down the aisle, it was only courteous and an obligation to us that we rub away those tears that Museveni brought to Busoga of historically creating death of over 54 people to their own admission, but different entities think that they were in the hundreds. So it was our obligation to do that, to join the people of Busoga to have some happiness since November 2020.
That's commendable.
The issue of political parties in Uganda, Honorable Ssemujju has elaborated and elucidated it to the point of the mentality of the resistors. You see, even when you're naming a child, it is important. But these are the National Resistance Army. And their failure to evolve into an organization has affected the leadership and institutionalization of all other political parties. Because the individualistic nature of Dictator Museveni in micromanaging every affair has also led that type of mannerism extend into affairs of other political parties. By extension, one should understand that our political parties are managed by the Electoral Commission. How are they managed by the Electoral Commission? The Electoral Commission supervises the operations of these political parties. If you look at all the challenges our political institutions go through, there is an aloof behavior of the supervisor, but to the benefit of the regime. Wherever there has been need of interpretation, either by the internal workings of the constitution, you will not expect to have the Electoral Commission come out the way it is supposed to come out, simply because still the person who heads the Electoral Commission is chosen and appointed by the micromaniac management of affairs of the nation and the militaristic nature. Every time the opposition comes out with any activity, it is approached by militarism, which is the doctrine of the resistance army. Now, it becomes difficult for the civilian political parties to operate under military rule. They are not allowed to assemble, they are not allowed to mobilize. What General Museveni is most afraid of is a person who will collect more than 10 persons, discuss anything apart from his overstaying power. And these institutions, even during elections, I mean, in the past elections, they used COVID. They would assemble, and other political parties were not allowed to assemble. just like I've told you about the November 18th, that was a constitutional democratic process. And in a democratic process, people are being killed. If you take stock of just the last, if you take stock of the last the last 3 elections, general elections, the last 3, you will be shocked with inclusivity of admission of court on the trauma that has been caused to Ugandans. You remember in the case of Dr. Kanokiza Besigye, where there was a virtual ruling of all of the judges of the Supreme Court on the behavior of the Kakoza Mutale group. Now this group used to cane. For them they would whip, and the whip was unprecedented. These other groups today, they kill in the electoral process. So the breathing space of these organizations to blossom has been suffocated by the longevity of the dictatorship and their desire to know every affair. Bribery, using taxpayers' money to infiltrate an organization that is supposed to give alternative leadership to a nation. Okay. You know, the lack of mindset to secure for all, but rather secure for their own existence is what has affected the progress of whatever we are supposed to talk about. And that is why we are where we are as a nation.
Waisamu Fumbiro, you introduced something that I hoped would come a little bit later, the fact that finances have infiltrated the political space.
Bribery.
Now, how somebody acts when they are faced with that challenge is pretty much very individual. For example, if you presented $1 million shillings to Ssemujju Nganda to act outside of the dictates of the FDC constitution, whether he allows or not is down to the fact that he's an individual, Ssemujju Nganda. It is not an institutional issue that, you know, we should see it in that stead. But let me just return to Honorable Ssemujju Nganda very briefly, use 5 minutes before we go for a break at the top of the hour. The workings of opposition political parties themselves, before you look at the suppression, alleged suppression, and the over-domineering of the national resistance movement, within the opposition, there are concerns that everyone is looking to eat, so to speak, which is down to the aspect of finances. Recently, you were the eye of the storm within the Forum for Democratic Change. Accusations thrown here and there about the fact that there was an attempt to carry the party to the national resistance movement. And within the workings of the FDC, if you cannot practice tolerance within the opposition itself, how will you demand of it on the national scene?
You see, if the FDC had been afforded the opportunity to function as an institution, it would deal with its own problems. Human beings by nature are going to be selfish. You will have those problems, including the NRM. But when the FDC attempted to cleanse itself, you saw what happened. We were not very far. We had a delegates conference here. The state made sure that the FDC leaders cannot meet. We were beaten by chiefs, by police, by the military. But the one group that has allied itself with the state, every activity of theirs was secured, including financing. So the FDC was crippled. It couldn't function as an institution. The same applies to all the other parties, because you see, if the Electoral Commission, picking it from my colleague from NUP, if the Electoral Commission had acted as a regulator, because human beings, as I said, are selfish, then the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be the regulator, should be intervening when parties, because in the Constitution, in the Political Parties and Organizations Act, every political party is supposed to be national and democratic. I was a journalist when when we turned to multi-party democracy. The first problem we had was that the NRM refused to account for its financing. They refused to make a declaration to the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission turned a blind eye. So the trouble is that because all institutions, whether they are school, whether they are supposed to be regulated, but the regulator only cares to the extent that the NRM continues to strengthen itself. So yes, there are problems inherently, problems with every human. We can deal with them using the constitution of the political parties itself, but also using the national constitution and other regulatory framework. That is not happening because the intention was never to build political institutions for the country. But most important, I remember midway the journey of the political parties in Uganda. I think we've now made about 18 years since parties returned. We went to benchmark together, including NRM, by the way, to Ghana and everywhere. Because you see, until Museveni has accepted that when you go in a political competition, you may win, you may lose, and if you lose, you peacefully hand over power. Then all the political parties in Uganda are not going to function as political parties, but just as vehicles and platforms for fighting for freedom, because that's the reality that we face. I remember meeting a former minister in Ghana, if you can allow in a second, and he told me NRM sent a delegation to Ghana, that time led by their Secretary General Kasule Lumumba. And the Ghanaians wanted to teach them how to handle transition. To handle transition? So the NRM was even shocked that someone will tell them that
It is part of the,
it is part of the game.
program.
And said, no, okay, that one we can leave. We just want to know how. So that's why I remember in the 9th Parliament, Dr. Ulumaiga brought a proposal in Parliament, a private member's law bill, presidential transition. It was rejected by NRM, even without looking at its content. Because Ghana, the biggest problem they faced when J. Rawlings stopped being a president was transiting from the ruling party to another party. They had even to do a law, transitional law, appoint directors, this and that. So the frame that we're operating in Uganda is that we have a military man who, because even NRM, you sympathize with them. Nobody should ever blame NRM. It does not exist.
Yeah.
You just have a military man with workers collected all over the country. If he says come, they will come running. If he says go back, they will disperse.
Honorable Samuel Uganda, Honorable Brandon Chintu will be responding to that very, very interesting allegation there, whether he's actually one who simply listens and does as directed without necessarily caring to understand the workings of the national resistance movement as a political entity. We are discussing whether multi-party politics is fit for purpose within Uganda's context, or it is some kind of dream that we must be able to condition ourselves in order to move forward as a country. When we return, this conversation continues. Do stay with us. Welcome back. We're glad you're still with us. We are in the Kickstarter segment of Morning at 10 TV and discussing whether multi-party politics is fit for purpose within the context of Uganda. Going into the break, we had thrown the question to Honorable Brandon Chintu, the MP for Kagoma County and the spokesperson of the National Resistance Movement Caucus, on whether within the National Resistance Movement, politics is a natural occurrence. In the break, it emerged that perhaps it is not, but that's a question that he can answer right now since he is on set. The Honorable Samuel Uganda has made, whether a labeling or an accusation, depends on how anybody will look at it, that the Central Executive Committee of the National Resistance Movement is a sitting duck.
It's defunct, it cannot see.
Okay.
The owner of the party now chose to do the work himself.
As a political party, the National Resistance Movement works on a set of structures and organs. Now, if one of them is not functional or defunct, as Samuel Uganda would love to put it, then it means the party itself is in disarray.
I'll first start with the first one, where you say political parties. I don't want to annoy the viewers and my colleagues here in the studio.
Yeah, I'm okay, you can annoy me.
I can annoy you.
Yeah.
But if I had a very extreme authority, I would say, probably since we don't understand, we don't even feel, so it's useless to have them. Why? Of recently, in the previous elections, we've just concluded.
You've just
NUP.
Repeat that statement. We don't understand. We don't feel. Political.
Multi-party
political dispensation.
We don't.
We don't understand it.
Do you know why?
Yeah.
Semuju is talking about dialogue and talking and what. I think he was among the group that went and pulled out Dr. Besigye in TDA. It was just here in Naguru. Besigye was in a meeting with other political players. They want to field one candidate. They pulled him out. So, and what kind of people are those?
And I condemn it. I was not part of it, and I condemn it.
But that was political party when they were trying dialogue. Recently, in the previous elections, they called the Honorable Chagulanyi and other political parties, let us make a coalition. Because when they describe multi-party, how multi-party parties operate, there is also a provision of a coalition, just in case the other party may not strongly mobilize to take charge of the country. Okay. But they couldn't even sit. So what picture are you giving to the rest? The only thing we have with our political parties, individuals that are clinging into these political parties to achieve certain positions at different levels. And this is evidence. Because, like Semuju says, we are selfish indeed. I think most politicians, you first have to think about yourself and your interest. You'll begin telling people how you'll do this, how you'll do this. Some of us who never came to parliament, we thought that the Semujus have probably a tree where they are plucking money to do all the impossibles. But we are in there, you can't see that possibility. So the promises and the will we give, because you don't look at a political party. You're not patriotic in your political party. Does it give you a platform to talk? Is it giving you an extra mileage to be busy and around? That's what we take. Now, whether to organs, whether to organs are functional, you know, we have a calendar, and every organized institution should have a program. When I used to work in civil society for many years, we would work at targets, and we come up with a work plan. That this is what we hope to do in 3 months, 5 months. You may not actually go on a public radio to say, now, I worked with CODAID for some time, that we are going to do this and this. So for some of you to see that the organs are not functioning, I'm wondering. But I know sometimes we caucus with them to relate on these agendas. But as a party, we have structures, rightly you said. And when as to meet, it's not public that will come and call the Semujus, you know, now we are going to meet. The party has a chair.
No, if you can allow, I think what Brandon needs to know, political parties in Uganda are public institutions.
True.
They're not private.
But they have management.
They all register with the Electoral Commission. They submit their constitutions. They even receive public funding. So you are accountable to everybody. This is not a private entity.
That is very true.
The NRA organs always sit in public.
That is very true. But we do have management. I have been a manager in big organizations. I know management. If we quarrel here and probably I pour a tea on Semuju or I pour a tea on Mufumbiro, I'm not going to come out in a we are talking about management.
Brandon,
so as organs,
they say that the way you manage your civil organization, run it well with those calendars, is the way where you are in the NRA. Can you publicly tell the country that?
The NRA
with honesty, because you are an honest man.
I am very honest.
Do you think the NRA is working? Yes.
Yeah. With
honestly, do you think the NRA is working?
You made that question clear.
And it also depends on how we assess someone who is honest. So I may say I'm honest when he's trying to say at the other side. That's entitled to everyone. But as the NRM, we could have challenges like any other political party. That's why the other time we were not laughing. I was here with the Honorable Centennial. I told him, because somebody popped a question, are you now laughing? I'm like, no, this is giving us an experience to learn. These are management challenges that we have to sort. Now, Mufumbiro talked about the Electoral Commission being appointed. You have a chief navigator who is appointed by the same person who is in the chair. But what is our role? We regulate. I would question Honorable Semuju, why don't we make that regulation? Why don't we are bringing so many bills, proposals, why don't we attach to that?
That one
Copying.
was actually brought to Parliament.
Yeah, the reforms also.
Not only Parliament, it has also constitutional ruling.
Actually, now thank you for even reminding me. There were some electoral reforms that you performed in the previous elections, in the previous Parliament. Recently, recently, I'm just saying there was, evident here, I can tell us, recently when the political parties, I think, while we were in Changwans, legislating and thinking and meditating on the issues of this country, these people were in Munyonyo, trying to, yeah, let's bring electoral reforms. We were also anxious as the NRM to wait, because these touch us as a pattern, as a country. But some statements were made that the leader of opposition he did not consult, and those are not there. So you can see the contradictions, and that still comes to management. So we need to understand how we can manage our political parties and also fill it with our masses so that we can preciously appreciate and grow. Yesterday, was it yesterday? Congratulations. They opened political party offices. And you want to say that there's no political space? When a party that has just come about 3 or 4 years has managed to open up an office, to mobilize and create more structures, how do you call that?
That could also speak to the challenges of the,
you see, even
the
under,
landscape itself.
Even under Idi Amin, the country continued living. The economy had collapsed.
So are you suggesting that we are
people didn't
in
die.
the scope of Idi Amin?
And you see, it is in Uganda where we celebrate people having accommodation, people buying phones, buying cars. Which economy is run to that satisfaction?
Let me ask the question. The National Unity Platform seeks to offer the country a new dispensation of leadership. But many times you have fallen victim to the process where there has been deliberate obstacles allegedly placed by the National Resistance Movement. If you were, for example, to take power in 2026, what would be the very first aspects in realigning Uganda's political landscape? For example, if that question is not for the president of the NUP, then the spokesperson can take it on right now. What are the building blocks? The very first things you understand that here we are, we do not have what needs to be done in order to practice multi-party politics the best possible way. Now we are in power. How do we start realigning the system away from scoring, or rather settling scores, for example, on the victimization or the harassment that you are facing right now? Because that is a possibility.
You see, political freedoms are not hinged on individuals. They are hinged on institutionalism. Once you talk about a constitution, you're talking about institutions. And then once you talk about a constitution, you have overwhelmed the magnanimity of any individual. And that definitely would give us the opportunity, once we have spoken about the institutionalism and respect of rule of law, which embodies the greatest of all, the doctrine of separation of powers. Because power is checked must be checked and balanced. And how does that happen? By respecting the legislature, where laws are made that govern the political play, by respecting the executive, where the policies are derived from, but also by respecting the judiciary. Once people have a platform, all the players have a platform where they can get equity, where they can get justice, where they can run to for remedy, then you have solved the greatest challenge that we have faced. Because what we are facing here is the militaristic nature of the titular head, the dictator General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and his longevity in power. Whatever is done is to the satisfaction of his existentiality as an individual, not as a political institution.
The words are
that is why
big, and some of our viewers could be having a little bit of difficulty following. Yeah, okay, continue. No doubt. Sorry for
the platform that we all play from, as we have said. It cannot be that a party in power is using taxpayers' money to suffocate other political organizations. It should be the duty of all those political players, inclusive of those in power, to see that what happens in other alternative political organizations gives them a breath of the future, because whatever we do is not for our own. It is for the future generations and future generations. So defeating the individualistic nature of running the affairs of the state and the country will solve, and going the institutionalization way, where you have checks and balances using the doctrine of separation of powers, helping all those other institutions that run rifle to the same, is better. And also how you involve accountability. Look at the electoral processes of political parties, their rights to assemble, their rights to mobilize, their rights to organize. Because if you have a great political party in the FDC, then you are sure of a nation even when you are not there. But we have a leader who thinks that his death should end the existence of Uganda. That is where we are.
God forbid. Honorable Ssemujju Nganda, the Forum for Democratic Change just recently provided us the symbolism of the political space in the country. If FDC were Uganda, and there were two competing factions, or parties, so to speak, that are vying for leadership, and then all the, right now I can describe it as very ugly scenes and confrontations, both intellectual and physical, that happened are seen for all to bear. At this point, how far are you in ensuring that, first and foremost, order is restored, but most importantly, that whoever is not in agreement with the other begins to work towards a point where you agree ahead of 2026? Because if you say, like you alluded to earlier, that one party that aligns itself with the National Resistance Movement seems to be allowed to do most of its activities without question, while you, who is not allied and are in protest, are harassed at the end of the day. What is the way forward? Because how you solve it will perhaps give us an idea how you might solve Uganda's problems.
I think until we, as a country, we've succeeded either in retiring or in removing Museveni, these problems are not going to stop.
Okay.
Because you need to debate this in context. Uganda People's Congress are two groups now. One group that has allied with Museveni, led by my friend, the Honorable James Akena. The Democratic Party is also two groups. One group that works with Museveni and another that is still fighting Museveni. Maybe we are naive in FDC to think that that will not happen to us, because that's the arrangement that Mr. Museveni has made. He will seek to take over that institution, all of it. If you refuse, he will pick part of it, and then he will fight the rest. That's where we are. So I am at the moment, I am much more interested in making a contribution in removing Museveni at a personal level than actually in seeking to restore the FDC. That's where my interest is.
Okay, and because that complicates the working.
I have told you, look at DP, look at UPC. Bet Kamya had a party, she went with it to Museveni, because Museveni wants all the institutions, the same way China runs political parties and our neighbors.
Even the NUP has the Kagabos.
Yeah. So he will seek to take over the political parties. If he can't take over all the political parties, then he will take over part of it. And that's what we need to be struggling with. Otherwise, to think that now the FDC, I'm not even interested in spending time on trying to restore the FDC until Museveni has gone. These problems are going to persist, because that's the style. Either he will bribe you or he will beat you. So now you make a choice. And that's why collectively, including these victims, they can pretend that we are in a party. You are not in a party.
I am.
Museveni sat here at the conference center when you are starting NRM. I was working at Mont. On the day the party started, it had a historical members' league. It had a veterans' league. The Honorable Martin Wandera asks, a party that we are starting today and we are the promoters and mainly all MPs had signed the NRM constitution. How can this party starting today have a historical members league, a veterans league? He said these things were formed long ago. So they are not in a party. I said these are workers. You have a military man who must recruit workers and supporters. Because if NRM was functioning as a party, they will have a calendar, as he said. Do they have it? If Museveni says tomorrow elections, they will all go running. If he says wait, they will wait. So where we are as a country, you asked my colleague Mufumbira, we had started, and the journey by the way was moving on smoothly. The making of the 1995 constitution was supposed to lay a framework under which politics is going to be done in Uganda. You will have parties, you will have a president serving and leaving, and all that has now been overthrown by Museveni. Even the constitution itself, no term limits, no age limit, no freedom of assembly, no freedom of association. So we've gone back practically to what used to happen before the 1995 constitution. So the solution now will be, after Museveni has gone, today or tomorrow, for the country to sit down and then reconstruct another framework under which politics and the country is going to be run. Otherwise, here at the moment, we are in the same way like South Sudan, like any other country that is still fighting for its existence. That's where we are.
If by any luck tomorrow President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni decides that he's stepping down as chairman of the National Resistance Movement and agrees to the calls of the opposition, calls including yours and Mufumbira, that he is the grand problem for Uganda, and chooses to go to Rwakitura and look after his cows. You, within the National Unity Platform, and Ssemujju Nganda within the Forum for Democratic Change, are you saying that will be your opportunity to begin to realign your systems in order to fit?
No, we can make a choice. In Togo, when Nguema left, he was replaced by his son. In Ghana, when J. Rawlings now led, decided to go, they made a constitution that even after a term of four years each, they put down a constitutional regulatory framework to run a country.
But we already have these frameworks.
They have been overthrown.
They have been overthrown.
That's why Museveni's son can go to campaign as a military officer. You have to Mukunda arrested. You have to Mukunda arrested because he was charged with spreading harmful propaganda. He was speaking on radio. But Museveni's son can go and address rallies and is being saluted by division commanders. So the law is no longer existing. We are under a one-man's rule.
The day this constitution for our generation was toppled is, I think, the day, to choose the words of retired Justice, Principal Judge Justice Ogola, is when the courts were raped. The rearresting of Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye by Museveni's son led the team of the Black Mambas. It started the process of abuse of constitutionalism on the doctrine of separation of powers. Because I told you that we are all supposed to, even at your own home, your wife has the responsibility to ask you whether you are the sole provider of why you came hours that are not usual to the ones you are all acclimatized to. There must be checks in life. And in governance, the checks and balances are situated in the doctrine of separation of powers. And what we are saying is that the reason we are telling you that General Museveni is the problem, because he's the military man. He is the one, it is in the interest of him that everything has been toppled. His longevity in power, even his own son, aloof as he is, has admitted and also seen that the National Resistance Army, run by his father, is frail, is disorganized, is not up to the task.
You will desist from characterization, especially on the show.
No, but these are words they have used. You have not read what his son has written about the NRA. You have not read what he has written about...
describing the person of an individual.
No, aloof means Samuju here.
No, the meaning is understood, but
Very simple.
to throw it.
But if that is his opinion, how can it be a problem?
No, the reason is because
I was actually courteous. I used the smaller word.
all right,
I was going to use
bigger one.
Yes,
stay
I
to
was
the,
going to
stay
be
to
more
the small
disciplined.
one, and I
Yes.
quickly go to
So-
Brandon. There's
so
something I need to
the
find out.
challenge why everybody feels overwhelmed by General Museveni is because he has not stopped. The reason we are here as political parties, himself, nobody else, when he was in Busega, after he had been defeated by Besigye in 2011, he said that by 2021, he will have finished all opponents. He will have crushed all other political opponents and political parties, and that coming from a leader. He forgot that he had funded and participated in creation
You could have
of
effectively
a constitution.
fallen for political rhetoric.
No, it was.
People speak
You see,
in order to threaten you.
But the reality.
And
Even him,
you know, it ceased.
He has also just issued some rhetoric.
No,
here
it ceased to
for
be
the
rhetoric
FBC.
when he takes it in effect. One, bribing. You see, you are questioning those who they use the gun and persuasion and other things. You see, to use them against the will of what they stand for. That is understandable on their character as a person, but also a person who is in a position of influence. The reason a man is charged of defilement of a person who is a minor is because you are a person of influence. You are supposed to be more knowledgeable to handle issues more than the minor. So in matters of the state, a person with guns, state resources, decides deliberately to break the law, introduce corruption into other political organizations, buy off leaders. You know, it is now in the open that I was in the DP when I say that leaders have been bought up. I have examples of Mao. Others may fear to say it.
Mao,
you have had the
Mao
members.
has a memorandum of understanding.
But they have been bought.
Something that is acceptable within the workings of multi-party politics.
Not even in DP.
No.
Not wait.
Memorandum of understanding.
Not any single member of the Democratic Party.
But the
Not even those of Parliament.
DP
Not even any caucus sat to give resolution. No, party is run by resolution, my brother.
Okay.
And sometimes those resolutions must even
overtake the Constitution.
Must even be gazetted. That is how institutions work.
Thank you. I'm going for a short break, but I don't know whether it's by design or Brandon Chintu is just a lucky man. Every time we are going into the break, he's supposed to bring us back. The question will be coming: if National Resistance Movement is left to be the only actor within the political space in Uganda, you will take us through. If President Yoweri Museveni, like I put the question to Ssemujju Nganda, decides that it's time, let me go to Raktura and look after my cows, how will the National Resistance Movement begin the process of taking the party and the nation forward in light of the fact that it is the governing party? I won't repeat that question. When we come from the break, Brandon Chintu will straight go into answering it. Stay with us.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
The public relations.
Welcome back. We're glad you're still with us. We are discussing whether multi-party politics is the perfect fit for Uganda as a country. There has been deliberation and submissions that suggest maybe if Uganda can reach a certain point, then that discussion can suffice. As a moderator and journalist, I say these discussions ought to suffice any one time, and there should not be a timeline as to, for example, the departure of one person or another for such aspects to begin to take root. As we went into the break, I posed the question to Brandon Chintu, the Honourable MP for Kagoma North County, who is also spokesperson of the National Resistance Movement. The National Resistance Movement, can it survive the departure of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni if he decided this day, Tuesday, the 7th of November, that he's going to Raktura and to take care of his cattle? how will the National Resistance Movement begin the process of realigning itself? Over to you, Honorable Chintu.
Actually, I would like to thank you for practically and nicely introducing me in that capacity. You know, the Honorable Ssemujju has problem with understanding whether I'm a supporter, I'm a worker, or I'm a spokesperson, because I was elected by the over those 300-something members of parliament. Now, of course, change is a fact of life. I have been here in my now late 30s. I have seen only one president and one regime. And I think if you change from your suit that you've been wearing for a full week and you get a new one, like now I'm excited to have a new suit for the wedding. I'm very excited. I want to see what kind of, for Chavazinga.
Yeah.
I would be very excited what kind of shoes. So there's excitement around me. Like any other, even the country. There are people we have who are in revolution, who are only their specific goal is to see Museveni out. The Honorable Ssemujju tells you every day that he will not resign until Museveni is out. Even well knowing.
He actually says the country's problem.
Yeah, it's Museveni.
Without Museveni, Uganda becomes...
Even well knowing that he may not afford the capacity to do that, because this guy is being elected every after 5 years by millions of Ugandans. But mechanisms are there. Mechanisms are there to change. And I think every day, like you said, I'm glad that we can have a platform as leaders, as politicians, to guide the people and discuss. Mainly those who would be stuck with the idea that we have not seen. Because there are those with that idea. We have not seen any other leader. The other day I went out to Fusion in Kansanga, and it was happening up to like 3 o'clock. I asked myself, can these people wake up at 6 in the morning to say we want to overthrow government? With all these rights, happiness, you not tell me those people are deprived. They are drinking serious liquors. For the Muslims, like Honorable Ssemujju may not understand those JD and those stocked liquors now. So there are people who are thinking in that way. We are sleeping, we are into this. We are saying change will come. But is it appropriate? Are those I just explained to you here what multi-party politics means. Do we have these parties that in charge, they have fully understood to take up responsibility? In my region, if you're going to start receiving the Holy Communion, they train you. Previously, for us, we were being trained 2 or 3 years if you're a Christian. Nowadays, it's a couple of months. They want you to understand what you're going to partake. Do you understand?
If
Do you know the value
if you want
of what
an
it
person
is?
to speak about Museveni's departure, it is not on a show like this.
I am speaking.
When we are walking out after the first key, he will tell you.
Speaking. So, the transition, actually within our organ as the NRM, we are also discussing. Like we are talking, how do we
Are you discussing the post-Museveni NRM?
A discussion can be very broad.
Yes.
Like here, we started with something else. We have discussed so many things. That can be for another
All within
day.
the context
But
of
even in
party.
the leadership of the party, we are saying, I think people should take up. And that's why we have also regional leadership like any other political party. So it's not really true that the problem of this country is Museveni. Maybe the problem will be the people are voting Museveni every after 5
They
years.
are drunkards, is what you're saying.
No, I didn't say that. I was giving, I drink myself. I'm actually on stand when somebody, we have now a bill that is before us about alcohol. Yesterday we were in a workshop and I was opposing. I'm not a drunkard, I'm a very sober citizen.
You have said those who drink up to
I was,
and they wake up in the morning. You cannot
Honorable
wake
Prime
up.
But that's the
Minister,
problem.
Let me focus.
That's also the problem we have with the opposition.
Let me realign
They
this.
want to be in activism.
No,
You
I
see,
want,
I was
I
trying
want
to
to
change my
understand. I want to understand.
I have said soberly because I move
Why,
with
sir?
my
Why, sir?
head.
Let me
Can those who are drunk at 3 a.m. I want to understand.
Can
And for clarity,
can they seek a change?
can they seek
Do they-
change?
do they-
But I understand the context within which he is
With
asking.
hard
Exactly.
liquors.
I understand, but let me just pause
Thank
this
you
question
for
and perhaps,
understanding.
keep ourselves focused on this. The NRM has often been seen to stifle the emergence of leaders within the party who want to challenge the status quo. This has been reported in the newspapers. We have covered it as broadcasters. You, as a member of the National Resistance Movement, who even holds a very top position as spokesperson of the caucus, the discussion about the post-Museveni National Resistance Movement is integral to the political landscape of the country. It should be a discussion that is first and foremost free within the establishment and one that leaders need and feel they should take on. Why aren't you taking it on? You know, it's until you're asked on shows like this that the post-Museveni NRM can be discussed.
No, I don't know where you get the question, why are we not taking on?
We don't see
Maybe
it.
you don't see it, but
hear
we
it.
are moving. We are moving.
Then reveal to
There are
us
certain,
what are you moving on?
There are certain things, you know the challenge we have, that these activists we have on the political scene, the moment you bring something, whether it's very good, yeah, I'm answering. I'm answering and I'm protecting myself.
Okay.
The moment we start,
vote apart from
the moment we start,
it is the question.
that this is our plan, they will jump on it and start disorganizing, blackmailing it. Now you see, it's because of being pressure. So we are very critical because we have been here longer.
Okay.
These so many years, we know, and we know they are
one person.
Let's ask Honorable Ssemujju Nganda. He has been very categorical. Uganda's problem is Museveni, and he will not rest until Museveni is off the scene. By the way, let's be very clear. Being off the political scene should not be seen as wanting the end of life to visit Museveni. No doubt.
No, want him to go and retire.
Okay.
And then the
Yeah,
state,
be specific about
the state
that.
under the law will take care
are
of
you
Now, if
giving us
Museveni leaves the political
specifications
scene
on
right
how
now,
Yeah.
Ssemujju
should
Nganda,
retire?
you are now entering the stature of veteran politician,
Yes.
because you've been around for
I'm
you
actually
practiced.
50 this year.
You're 50 this
Okay,
year.
you should leave.
Congratulations.
Some of you guys has been here longer.
Museveni departs and goes to Raktura. Tell us, what is your blueprint?
As I said earlier, let me just repeat myself. Uganda has existed. All that we will need to do is to reconstruct the country. There was an attempt in 1995, the 1995 constitution, how the politics were done, how the economy will run. That opportunity, Museveni overthrew it. Because what we are lacking now is unaccountable government, but also the empowerment. Because you see, the whole struggle, at least within us, the FDC, has been a struggle for freedom. The question that you are asking me are questions that are going to be answered once there is freedom in the country for the population to choose. Because if you come and fail the economy, fail security, you will be removed by the citizen once citizens are empowered. And for me, the reconstruction of the country needs to start there. As I said, there was an attempt that put parties, that put term limits, put institution to deal with accountability. That arrangement was overthrown. If Museveni departs today, the first thing that we'll need to do is to sit in a national conference in whatever arrangement and then restore the constitution and restore constitutionalism. The rest are simple things. If you asked me for the economic policy, I can tell you this is what we will do in agriculture, this is what we do in health, this is what we do, but that remains a theory. The moment you've not dealt with the issue of administration. And that's why Museveni, in one of his books, What is Africa's Problems, he singled out one problem and he said, overstaying of leaders. One problem.
Leaders who overstay.
Leaders who overstay in power. Just one problem.
Unelected leaders.
No. Then he qualified it later.
Understand? Yeah, he
qualified it later because he was
you have
now.
a reason to.
He has now.
That
Statement
was
has
change
been-
of mind.
No. The reason
Don't you change your mind?
The scientific
He changed his mind from
the
BP
scientific analysis
to NUP.
of leaders who overstay in power is clear that it is that the law of diminishing marginal utility. It takes on the individual. Yes, does not take on the tenure. We are not discussing the tenure. We are discussing the individual. That is why he was descriptive. He said leaders who overstay in power. He never said institutions. It is okay for the NRA to be in power, like Chama Cha Mapinduzi is doing in Tanzania. But individuals, because as an individual, you know, when we were growing up, my father, there are things I could not do. By the time I grew up, I saw the young ones doing exactly what I was stopped from doing. Because age is a fact of life, even in management of the affairs.
Can
All
I
right,
give some information on that, which is biblical?
1 minute, I need to
I am very happy.
And
You
quote-
asked Brandon. One time in Nakasero, the NRM Central Executive Committee sits, and Felix Okot wants to be a presidential candidate. Then Museveni said, let me hand over to Chigongo, the vice chair, and then I go out, because now they had to vet the candidates. Mukula was the first shoot up. You can't embarrass the president. Then Felix Okoto was forced to apologize, and then he said, okay, I am not contesting.
Interesting.
So to discuss
today, Okoto is under close scrutiny
as a minister,
for having showed interest of
and
desiring to be
Museveni is so
president.
fearful. There was a lady here called Elizabeth from Ruel. People said her mental status had issues. She said, I want to be an RM chairman. Immediately she became a presidential advisor.
Tell Brandon the Musoga one. Charia.
That's why Brandon, the question he cannot answer, even at a gunpoint, is the question about Museveni's departure. You've seen how many words he has used to say nothing.
Challenge the man. Challenge the man.
You know,
I'll leave it to him.
Like he told you that his problem is to remove himself, even without any capacity. But he's just wondering to see that he keeps the political fame. We would also interest Ssemujju actually now to retire.
Why would it be famous?
But what I
for
needed,
him
what I
to
needed
remove
to
a person
allude,
who is
now that's where I want to help you understand better. Even
that
the Bible.
Me. What makes Ssemujju famous?
That's why I want to
if
now
he's
make you
speaking something
understand.
that is not famous.
Now, of course, like I said, you.
So you
political
realize
activists-
that you have a challenge.
No, there's no challenge.
That makes
when
him
you
famous.
serve, let me give you this quote. You can meditate and think about it, probably to align you better. When you serve God faithfully, God rewards you faithfully. The President Museveni has served Ugandans faithfully. They are rewarding him every after 5 years. What this guy should do is to get down, leave this Kampala. Because the parties are just on top of Kampala and talking, speaking a lot of English. Get down to Udondo, get down to Ivunamba, get down to Chazan,
the Honorable
and
Kyagulanyi was
mobilize,
arrested in Ruuka.
and
Ruuka is
mobilize
not in
your
Kampala.
People were murdered in Ruuka.
You mobilize your people to overturn the
People were
regime
murdered in
through
from
election.
Ruuka.
And if
See,
say,
the Honorable Kyagulanyi was in
Nanda
Luweero, and they say now you cannot continue.
that this country has no constitution, they abused the agreement.
All right,
They had
gentlemen,
arrangements.
Which agreement?
They had arrangements.
I
We
have
said
an
White
agreement.
House, you had
Discussing
arrangements.
post-Museveni.
Honorable Ssemujju,
That we shall
Waiso
come back.
Mufuliro and Brandon Chintu, I have very little time left for us to discuss. Now, within the workings of any country, we see how China does manage its issues. It's under one very controlled umbrella.
They call it a democratic dictatorship.
That controlled
Which one?
umbrella.
China.
And it's what happens. When I look at the National Unity Platform, the Forum for Democratic Change, and the Democratic Party, and all the other opposition entities, what is being done within your settings to realign the mindset of Ugandan politicians and those who elect them into office? Because we might blame President Museveni, but for how long shall we blame him? Or,
As
shall
long
we,
as he's
or
here.
shall we pray that he departs? Within the workings of opposition politicians, there are those who have been seen to scheme and position themselves in order to benefit from what they say or claim are the workings of the National Resistance Movement.
Which is
Within
not even
NUP,
true.
how is that being addressed? Because you like it or not, you've already commended, there's a gentleman you talked about, is it Kabaho, who is Kagabo. You understand and you allege, if your words are anything to go by, that he's aligned to the NRM. Now, those are within National Unity Platform. Not Museveni's problem, is it?
You see, I told you that, of course, as political institutions, we all safeguard how we manage these challenges, because as you've heard, these are not things that we are hearing for the first time. Before the comrade Ssemujju and Dr. Besigye today come out and tell you the challenges Museveni has brought to them, even in private, they shared with us how certain meetings would be held, but when General Museveni has met some of their colleagues, but then as a political institution, you need to move forward knowingly with the intelligence of what other people are moving with. For me, it is not about how we handle, because those are the few. But there is this person who is empowered by the state, who is empowered by taxpayers' money. That is why it is what we have diagnosed as the problem. Because these people come and go. They are used. They are used like condoms, and they are dumped and they are forgotten. Many of them We had the Agura Warriors. I have seen many with my long time around. I have seen many. Agura Wari is one who campaigned with a chopper from a friend in America. Later on, he was convinced, bribed into that. So it is not even about the brain, the person, the abilities. It is about the dictatorship, the challenges of the dictatorship. And that is what all our forces of change, the change seekers are looking at how to remove the obstacle to progress of people having freedoms and accountability above self. All of us are supposed to be subjects of service above self, the people.
Okay.
And empowering their accountability, empowering their direction of how they want their affairs to be run. You have a population that does not want you to be in Congo, you are in Congo. You are working on roads in Congo when the roads around Kololo and around Naguru, all of them are in a ramshack. So accountability, it is all about empowering the people, understanding that it is about the people, because that is the definition of government. It is the definition of democracy.
All right,
it is all inclusive of what the people and the desires of the people. But also, the visionary oversight of leaders is very important at how these political institutions go forward. And leaders are born, others are made, but training is also an important aspect. So there must be a breadth of this political institution being given a platform to be able to carry out their activities, to train,
thank you very much,
to align their leaders among others.
Honorable Brandon Chintu, wrap this up for us.
The Honorable,
or rather, wrap this up on your part.
He has made a very, very good statement. I wish would always make such statement that leaders need to be trained, irrespective of their political parties. Because he has just told you about some leaders. What is the quality of these leaders we have? And then also, what I would like to warn strongly the opposition people, that they should desist from poverty. Mufumbiro is telling you, yes, because poverty is a very big disease. If you woke up, if Mufumbiro here,
are you
with my OB,
these guys are intentionally flirting with poverty?
If Mufumbiro here is my OB and a great brain from Busoga got man and starts driving a G-Wagon, they will start saying he's a mall, he's been bought. Not knowing the man is hardworking. He's been here as a lawyer, as an activist. He has private business. The moment he comes out, they will say he has been bought. So, meaning that to be in opposition, you must be poor.
We don't have people who are saying
but that's no, but that's what you're saying. That when some people they have been
in Arua,
they have been bought, they have been.
You were wrapping it up for yourself on this.
The opposition people should appreciate one. We should really work together. Same you being in FDC and Mufumbiro being in NUP, we are all of a sudden we are going to jubilate on the 18th. But we shouldn't look at it at a very extreme level, that we shouldn't talk this one is a thief. The opposition should also appreciate that when there is government, that's why these guys have a leader of opposition in parliament who brings even alternative policy statements and all. They have a cabinet. To discuss
his policy of human rights, abuse of human rights.
They have a cabinet in parliament. So we should give opportunity so that, because this is how in Uganda, I wouldn't love if NUP comes into power to find a shattered country. And yet we have where we come from, and we must protect us. We must protect it and make sure we have continuity. That's when we shall protect all the freedom, all the rights.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Famiro. Do not extend that conversation between you and Brandon Chintu. Allow me ask Honorable Samuel Uganda to wrap this up for us, but also help us in doing so. Might we need a benevolent dictator?
But he's just going to spoil.
Like Lee Kuan Yew.
No, we need to restore the constitutional order. That will give confidence to each and every one of us. At the moment, the country is run like a personal enterprise. I asked Mr. Museveni one time when we were on TV, when we were on radio, how he came to the conclusion that his wife must serve as a minister in a cabinet and his son must be a member of the high command. Of course, it's a question that he couldn't answer. We need to go back to constitutionalism and constitutional order that gives even confidence to investors. There is nobody who wants to invest except the fortune hunters in a country whose stability rests on an individual. Someone who will bring here 100 million US dollars, you will never recover that money until almost 20 years later. You want to go to a country that is stable, a country that you know will not change because one leader has departed. Kenya is nearly there. Ghana is there. Bit of many countries in the south and in the south and North Africa. Uganda is not yet there, because people who come here are risk takers, that as long as Museveni gives me protection. So even the discussion here on TV will shift. We will now be discussing policies and not discussing individuals overstaying in power, like Mr. Museveni correctly observed that the problem of Africa are leaders who overstay in power. Okay. So once that has been achieved, myself and Mufumbiro and Brandon, if we will be actors at that time, we will come here to present our programs on agriculture, on health, on education, on infrastructure, and that's where the competition will go. By overstaying in power, by militarism, by butchering people, Museveni has made us discuss individuals every day. And I told him when you're on radio that the day you leave, I'll lead the choir to sing for you, sir. And then he spoke like Brandon, that you know NRM has a constitution, has a framework, has what, as if he didn't know when you're making the constitution that all those things existed.
Honorable Ibrahim Semuju Nganda, MP for Kira Municipality, many thanks for the submission. Many thanks to you too. Honorable Brandon Chintu, MP for Kagoma North County, also spokesperson of the National Resistance Movement Caucus. And of course, Waiswa Mufumbiro, the deputy spokesperson of the National Unity Platform. Gentlemen, it's been emboldening to hear your submissions and perspectives on multi-party politics and the dispensation for Uganda in particular. That will do it for this edition of Morning at NTV. It's been a pleasure having your company on behalf of the team behind the scenes that ensured these last 2.5 hours are as productive in discussion as they have been in viewing. Please, thank you very much. For those out there, many thanks for being our company Monday to Friday. We shall see you tomorrow. Have yourselves a lovely day.